Finally, the truth has been revealed, and it is much more horrifying than anyone could have possibly thought it would be, regarding the extraordinary extent that this gang went to in order to engineer your collapse. The secret is now entirely out of the bag. Everything is being brought to light right now for everyone to see, including the intricate strategies, the coordinated efforts, and the manipulation that took on behind the scenes. People are completely taken aback by the extent of their duplicity and the strategic actions they made in order to bring about this particular conclusion for you. Suddenly, something that they believed would remain concealed for all of time is being brought into the open. There will be no more concealment or secrecy. Things that are done in the shadows are eventually brought to light by the universe. Now, they will be forced to deal with the repercussions of their conduct, while you continue to stand firm in your convictions. There is a cosmic justice at work here. They believed that the darkness might conceal their actions for all time. According to their beliefs, it was possible for secrets to be buried so deeply that not even the light of truth could penetrate them. It is completely and utterly incorrect. Under the ruthless light of revelation, what was formerly concealed by a veil of darkness now stands exposed. Not only has the cat been let out of the bag, but it is also yelling from the rooftops today. Every ear is capable of hearing its cries. In the cosmic ledger, each and every action that they took against you has been recorded systematically. Each and every whisper, each and every strategy, and each and every calculated stroke were captured very clear. Everything is accounted for by the great accounting, none of it. And at this point, the books have been opened for everyone to see what has happened. Keep an eye out. As soon as a rock is turned over, you may observe how they scramble like insects. Since the beginning, their power has been an illusion, a house of cards constructed on quicksand. Now, the ground beneath them is now beginning to disintegrate. The structure suddenly collapses, and they urgently try to grab hold of the falling debris. Far too late, far too late. Your truth is now amplified by the very machine that they constructed in order to suppress you. In proportion to the amount of effort they put into erasing you, the permanence of your mark increased. This is the pinnacle of divine irony. They were so desperate to exert control over the outcome that it only served to hasten their downfall. Do you agree that the cosmos has a sense of humor that is truly wicked? Their desperate efforts to keep the story going are turning out to be a complete and utter failure. From one instant to the next, breath by breath, it was something that they were unable to comprehend, and it was something that they failed to realize, that darkness cannot endure when light decides to arrive. Moreover, it has arrived in waves that are unyielding and uncompromising. Every fabrication, every manipulation, and every perfectly built falsehood is consumed by the truth as it spreads through dry brush like wildfire as it travels through dry brush. In the process of disintegrating molecule by molecule and atom by atom, those stories that they told, those brilliant fictions that they woven to portray themselves as heroes and you as the enemy, were told. It is the nothingness from which these lies originated that causes them to disintegrate. They portrayed themselves as virtuous individuals who were the guardians of order. In order to divert attention away from their own immorality, they cloaked themselves in a false sense of virtue and pointed the finger at others. What a remarkable display of arrogance, and what a spectacular error in judgment. From the very beginning, the foundations of their story were rotten, and now the entire structure is groaning beneath the weight of the truth. It's that sound, right? The splintering and cracking symphony that characterizes their collapse. It is the most beautiful music, the harmony of justice, something that has been delayed for a very long time, but has finally arrived with a resounding presence. Even the most devoted of their supporters are increasingly turning their heads away. They are unwilling to be caught in the crushing gravity of their decline, and even their most steadfast allies are beginning to retreat one by one. As the queries are whispered, they become uttered doubts, and they become accusations that are shouted. Those individuals who had previously defended them are now questioning their own judgment and asking how they could have been so completely misled. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull, tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership, it's your calling. Evidence accumulates, and a pattern begins to take shape. What in the past appeared to be individual occurrences are now forming a constellation of malice that cannot be denied. The painting is finished, and it communicates a narrative that they are no longer able to control. It is a narrative of premeditated destruction that is directed directly at you. The endless nights that they spent building alibis, fabricating proof, and practicing their synchronized testimony were all efforts that failed to provide the desired results. The earthquake of revelation that is currently shaking its foundations is too much for the sophisticated scaffolding that they have constructed for their deceit. Observe as each strut that has been properly placed buckles. Observe how each load-bearing untruth breaks apart when subjected to pressure. The sound of their words is now empty. All of those fervent denials, those weeping protests of innocence, and those righteous accusations of persecution have been revealed to be theatrical acts that are designed to manipulate emotion and short-circuit reasoning. The audience is now able to see what is going on behind the scenes, and they are able to observe the mechanical workings of their deception. The enchantment of their illusion is no longer present ever again. History was rewritten with you playing the role of the enemy. They rewrote the truth in order to facilitate their narrative, and in order to defend their acts, they reenacted the incidents. However, the truth is unyielding. The truth continues to exist, and the genuine timeline is now re-establishing itself with an inexorable force, erasing their fabrications like sandcastles before the tide. Their campaign against you was not a casual or random one, nor was it the result of a misunderstanding or a circumstance. Your entire removal from the board was the goal of this concerted effort, which was planned, methodical, and unrelenting. It was created with the intention of achieving this goal. You were the one who arranged those coincidences that brought you down. You were the victim of contrived misunderstandings that led to your isolation. Those close buddies who suddenly become unfriendly and manipulative. Every single failure, every single difficulty, and every single betrayal are all components of their epic plan. The amount of effort that they put on destroying you communicates a great deal about the things that they feared about you and explains why they devoted such resources to a single individual. What was the reason for the focused attention on your removal? Mostly due to the fact that they sensed a force that could not be controlled within you. What they saw in you were the seeds of their exposure, which was unavoidable. At this moment, people are waiting for the truth. Those who were unknowingly put in a position to participate in their plots recoil in horror at the fact that they were involved. In a low voice, they say, "We were unaware. We were unable to see the bigger picture." However, ignorance provides only a small amount of protection from the storm of consequences that is currently crashing down on them all. In the past, the attacks that were made against you were disregarded, reduced, and justified. But now they are exposed in their bare brutality. It was all precisely planned, carried out in a cruel manner, and is now completely revealed. The psychological warfare, the character assassination, and the systematic deconstruction of your support structures are all examples of psychological warfare. The time, a single crystallized instant, came when they were unable to maintain control of the situation. It was at that point that the mask became so firmly attached to their face that it developed a hairline crack. Observed it, did you? Are you referring to the slight stutter in their perfectly crafted tale, or the spark of panic that appears in their eyes? That marked the opening of the final chapter. The arrogance that they possessed led them to imagine that they were immune to detection. In their arrogance, they believed that they were untouchable and that they were the architects of reality. I am astonished by the amazing deception and the outstanding blindness. They failed to comprehend the most fundamental law of existence, which states that the truth cannot be concealed for an infinite amount of time. They made an effort to alter history by promoting you to the status of a footnote rather than a chapter. Your significance, your contribution, and your very existence were all targeted by their attempts to degrade you. However, the fact is adamant. As a result of the fact that reality is resistant to change, their fictional account is now falling apart wherever it comes up against the wall of what actually occurred. Get ready to watch them scramble. Just as the ship is sinking beneath them, you can watch them point their fingers at each other. Observe them as they rewrite their own involvement, assert that they are ignorant, and plead misconception. All too late. In light of the fact that the proof is unmovable, their desperate attempt to backtrack only serves to establish their guilt. A living thing that emanates from them in waves, their panic is real and can be felt by everybody. It is now that they make errors. They are in conflict with themselves. Every time they make an effort to keep control, they reveal more information than they intended to. The more they resist, the more they become caught in the web that they have created for themselves. A small quiver could be heard in their voice when they were directly questioned. The anxious laughter that occurs when one is asked for specifics. That abrupt hostility when confronted with inconsistencies. All of these things indicating the turmoil that lies beneath their failing mask. All of these things signaling the desperation of many people who feel as though they are losing control for good. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You and sow a gift of $20 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. As they search for exits that are no longer available, their gaze dart around. Their words stutter and stutter over each other as they struggle to live up to the scripts they have studied. Their assertions devoid of self-assurance are replaced by qualifications that are stuttering. In front of an audience that is suddenly attentive, the professional performance begins to disintegrate. Will you ever forget how they stood in front of everyone, exuding complete and utter assurance? Could you perhaps explain how their voice remained steady while they recounted their account of the events? At the same time that they were giving full fabrications, how could they maintain steady eye contact? One of their most powerful weapons was their unwavering self-assurance, but now it has deserted them at a time when they require it the most. There is always an architect hiding behind every plot. One can always find a mastermind hiding behind every organized onslaught. It was someone, specifically someone, who tugged the strings of the puppets as they were dancing. It was that elder, that leader, that central figure who planned everything while retaining plausible deniability. They have now been placed under the intense scrutiny of the spotlight. Their fingerprints, which were previously undetectable, now emit an incriminating radiance that can be seen on every facet of this arrangement. Real-time mapping is being done to determine the hierarchy of those responsible for this destruction. The foot soldiers, the lieutenants, the generals, and all the way up to the commander who issued the orders. There are links in a chain of malice that goes back longer than anyone thought, and it is tied to power structures that were afraid of what you and your organization represented. It was believed by those who moved in the shadows that the darkness would shield them for all of eternity. What an extremely significant error in judgment. The only places where shadows can be found are in areas where light is obstructed, and light is now coming in from every path. There is no nook or cranny that is deep enough to conceal their involvement. All of the strategies they devised to isolate you are failing miserably. There is a rebounding of every system that is designed to ruin you. In spite of the fact that every betrayal is designed to break you, it instead strengthens you. In the process of transforming their poisonous intents into the very medication that heals what they wanted to destroy, the cosmic machinery of justice operates with perfect precision. In order to preserve a flawless public image while simultaneously orchestrating your downfall from a comfortable distance, the puppet master felt that they were untouchable, concealed behind multiple layers of security and directing activities through intermediaries. The amount of calculated safety and the amount of thorough shielding from consequence, all for nothing. All of the connections that connected them to each attack have been exposed, and they are vibrating with an echo that cannot be denied. The fact that deeper currents flow beneath the surface of reality was something that they did not recall, or perhaps they were never aware of, while they worked in the material domain. In the realm of universal law, it is impossible to deceive, manipulate, or escape. Each soul receives exactly what they have sent out, as it acts with mathematical precision and returns exactly what they have sent forth. Blessed by His grace, click Super Thank You and give $20 plus to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. Having a divine order is not a pleasant myth that is intended to comfort those who have been hurt. As the fundamental structure of existence itself, it is the foundation. They are now confronted with this unchangeable reality, and their knees are shaking and their hearts are quaking. Everything that they let loose comes back to them, doubled, intensified, and impossible to avoid. Warnings made their appearance, indicators manifested themselves, and possibilities to make course corrections presented themselves with a growing sense of urgency. All of them were disregarded. All of them were rejected with a cynical satisfaction. When the bill finally arrives, they find out that their spiritual credit is severely and catastrophically overdrawn, but it is too late to do anything about it. They gave back what they had put out. The things that they made are rebounds. The action that they took completed the circle and brought it back to the source, with no exceptions. Not a single exception. However, there is no diplomatic immunity from universal law. The manifestation of their spiritual bankruptcy is now apparent. The payment of the karmic debt that they have accrued as a result of the innumerable decisions that they have made out of fear, greed, and desperation is required. In addition, payment will be made, not because some external force requires revenge, but rather because things need to be brought back into balance. It is not a kind of punishment. At this level, physics is functioning on the level of the soul. A mockery of the idea of spiritual consequence was displayed by them. They were not interested in the concept of cosmic justice. Despite being warned about the hidden consequences of their conduct, they laughed at the warnings. Now, they are standing naked in front of these very forces, devoid of any pretense or protection, and facing the perfect mirror of everything that they have unleashed against you. There are some forces that cannot be resisted, but power that has been held for a long time rarely gives up willingly. Certain tides cannot be turned around. There are some transitions that cannot be avoided. Such a moment has arrived. It is a fundamental realignment that cannot be stopped by any amount of opposition possible. When combined with water, their authority melts away like salt. Their control is slipping through fingers that are grasping each other with increasing ferocity. The voices that they had previously stifled are now speaking with a resounding volume. The realities that they hid from the public are now spreading with an inexorable speed. Suddenly, people appear to emerge from hypnosis, staring in bewilderment at the notions that they had previously accepted without doubt. They wonder to themselves, how could we have missed it? Is it possible that we were so completely misled? Eyes everywhere are falling off their scales, and what is seen cannot be undone at this point. The transfer of power from one hand to another is not the only thing that is happening here. The entire essence of power itself is being transformed as a result of this trend. As each hour passes, the effectiveness of the traditional tools of control, fear, deception, and manipulation decreases exponentially. What develops is a new paradigm, which is constructed on foundations that they are unable to corrupt or influence. The shift is picking up speed. What started off as a whisper then became into a conversation, then a proclamation, and finally became an obvious fact. The futile efforts they make to resist this transformation only serve to underline the fact that they are becoming increasingly irrelevant to the new reality that is taking shape around them. There is no way for mountains to negotiate their presence. The depth of oceans is not compromised in any way. Moreover, this transformation, this fundamental rearrangement of reality, continues with the same elemental certainty as before. No amount of denial can change the way things will proceed. Its progression is not slowed down by any degree of resistance. No appeal to tradition can stop the appearance of this phenomenon. In preparation for a cyclone, they gathered their soldiers. A tsunami was a threat, so they constructed dams. In preparation for an earthquake, they constructed barricades. When it comes to the futility of their resistance, it would be amusing if it weren't so pitiful. It's like seeing children try to stop the tide with plastic buckets and tiny shovels. In the face of this transformation, their weapons show to be ineffective. All of their threats are fruitless. Despite their tactics, they are not successful. Suddenly, the old tools that had been providing them with service for such a long time appear to be the rudimentary instruments that they had always been. They are only effective against people who have faith in their power. Take into consideration the intricate plans that you have for your annihilation. They devised the multi-layered strategy, the backup plans, and the contingency plans for scenarios that could potentially occur. All of that precise planning, all of that comprehensive attention to detail, and all of that focused aim is suddenly crumbling right in front of their eyes. The thing that was supposed to be your downfall turns out to be the instrument that brought about their own demise by itself. It is now that the very traps that were set for you are closing in on them with poetic precision. At the moment when their weapons are turning in their hands, cosmic justice is made manifest in crystal clarity. The people that they attracted to support their cause are now re-evaluating their commitment. Their own judgment is called into doubt by others who carried out orders. Those who disregarded what was going on and remained silent can no longer claim ignorance of what took place. A division occurs along the lines of self-preservation within the alliance that was established against you. Behold the disintegration of every meticulously crafted plan. Observe how each technique fails miserably to perform as expected, as the entire force of their nasty purpose is brought back at them with mathematical precision. You can watch it happen. In this case, nothing is random. This is the excellent example of how universal law should be applied. Neither of them had any idea that this would happen. All of their careful planning, all of their careful strategizing, and all of their thorough calculation failed to take into account one crucial variable. The truth cannot be hidden for an infinite amount of time. Moreover, once it is revealed, it generates its own momentum that cannot be stopped. The timing of each domino's fall is always impeccable. Every mechanism of devastation that they developed is now working against the people who built it. It is precisely at the moment when the success of their big plan seems to be most assured that each component failed. Their collapse develops with such flawless grace that it can only be regarded as divinely choreographed. The symmetry of their collapse unfolds with such perfection. Those sessions in which they plotted your death are now revealed in their entirety. The conversations that they used to coordinate assaults are now the subject of public record. The resources that were allocated to your annihilation have now been exposed to be a wasteful investment in a campaign that was unsuccessful. Every single facet of their plot to harm you is now being used as evidence in the case that is being brought against them. They devised a complex device dedicated entirely to the purpose of removing you from existence. Its building required an incalculable amount of time from them. The functioning of the business received a large allocation of resources. And now, they watch in terror as this machine, which they have created and for which they are responsible, turns its mechanisms against them with a dreadful efficiency. It is the hunter who becomes the prey. An ensnarement is created for the trapper. While facing the blade, the executioner poses. It is not because of any effort made against them that their reputation has been destroyed. Rather, it is because of the straightforward and devastating impact of the truth being disclosed. In order to eliminate them, there is no need for a complex plot. Their very own activities, which are now brought into the light, do this with complete and utter effectiveness. Now the community that once welcomed them with open arms is scrutinizing each and every encounter with a fresh perspective. The phrases that were once accepted without question are now being scrutinized in great detail. When viewed in light of the growing body of facts, the answers that were earlier adequate now appear deficient, transparent, and insufficient. It is impossible to reverse the damage, regardless of how vehemently they dispute it, how imaginatively they explain it, or how aggressively they make an attempt to divert it. Unringing certain bells is not possible. In many cases, it is not possible to return certain disclosures to the state of darkness from which they arose. All of the efforts that are made to minimize their involvement just serve to highlight how desperate they are. As a result of every attempt to deflect blame, the extent of their responsibility is revealed. The necessity of consequences is demonstrated by each and every tactic one employs in order to avoid these consequences. All those who participated, all those who facilitated, and all those who knew but chose to remain silent are all affected by the fallout, which spreads in concentric circles. By the end of this reckoning, nobody will be left unaffected. The only thing that can be changed is the level of responsibility that each individual carries for what took place. Overnight, their social capital, which they diligently earned, over the course of years of careful image management, is completely lost.